on the computer. I'm going to go ahead and start the recording just to let everybody know that it will be recorded. And it will be available on the at a future date once I can coordinate the upload to the web page, but it will be available. I guess we can go into some of the past history of this particular project. We at Public Works have started this in pre-2015 era. This project basically originated from some of the maintenance and road considerations for the corridor, with the opportunity to add additional bike facilities along the corridor while we would be doing any kind of construction activities for the corridor, which basically takes in consideration any kind of tree considerations as well. The project in the past did have a opportunity for on-street a cycle track along the roadway. The particular option was not selected to move forward, and a secondary option of a off-road shared use path was selected. And in particular, we are at the design stage, at the 30% design stage for the corridor. So we have selected Wallace Montgomery as our design consultants of choice for this particular project. And they are this evening going to present to us their design to date, where we are, and some of the some of the impacts from the design itself.
So I'd like to just point out that it's halfway through the project, it was decided to do an off-road bicycle facility, not an oof-road bicycle facility.
A small minor typo,
right.
But we've corrected that verbally. I'll turn this over to Seth Darlington to kind of walk us through where they are with the design and go through again. We're at the 30% design stage. That is our first submittal and of the design. So I'll turn it over to Seth.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so just a brief overview of the sort of the limits of the project. This is Quince Orchard Boulevard, most of Quince Orchard Boulevard, from First Field Road in the north to First Field Road in the south. And then a little bit of a spur along Rabbit Road to the Robertson Park Youth Center. There's the main feature of this project is the 10-foot shared use path. And that'll be constructed on the west side of Quince Orchard Boulevard. And along with that shared use path will be, we want to go in and fix all of the ills with Quince Orchard Boulevard all at once. So we'll be repairing some pavement that's badly damaged and resurfacing, hopefully, the entire roadway. Restriping new lane lines, installing signs and relocating signs if needed. Of course, when we're doing this sort of work, we have a requirement to do stormwater management facilities. So we'll be installing new stormwater management facilities. We'll be impacting utilities for this shared use path, and some of those utilities are the street lights. So we'll be installing or rehabbing or some mixture of the two of street lights with LEDs. And then, of course, landscaping is part of this project as well. Installing new trees, removing old trees that are impacted directly from the sidewalk and others. And we'll talk about all of this later as we get into the more details. So I'm just going to walk you through from the south end of the project all the way to the north end. So this is the end of the project at First Field Road South. Off to the right in this photo is that intersection. And really where we're looking is where we are going to be installing a new shared use path. This narrow sidewalk, this narrow concrete sidewalk will be replaced with a nice wide asphalt path that can be used for, bicycles and wheelchairs and strollers and pedestrians moving both ways. So nice, wide and comfortable path.
So let
You
me
can see there.
let me add a
Yes.
little to that. So one of the terminations for this particular endpoint or where we're selected to actually end the shared use path at the crosswalk enables users to come across Quince Orchard Boulevard and go back up First Field Road. But it gives an opportunity for the community to be able to utilize First Field Road, Quince Orchard Boulevard, and from community feedback already, early feedback, that the neighborhood actually utilizes this pretty heavily for walking paths. And my understanding is some of the bicyclists actually use this in the evenings frequently. So it gives an opportunity to give another community connection with the shared use path. Thanks, Seth.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Moving into, here we go. We'll show you our preliminary design plans here. And I just want to point out a couple of things with these plans. The symbology is a little bit weird. It's not all that intuitive about what you are actually looking at. But this sort of gray cross-hatching area in Quince Orchard Boulevard indicates that we'll be resurfacing this pavement. So resurfacing means shaving off a layer of asphalt on the top surface of the roadway and then repaving it with a new surface. So it'll be all brand new asphalt, and then we'll paint in new lane lines in that area. The black bars that go across the roadway, Quince Orchard, near the intersection, that's a new crosswalk. It's repainting the exact same location that that there was a crosswalk in the past. We're just using the new standard for crosswalks, which is this sort of high visibility black bar. And then the green sort of shading on the top side of your screen there, that's anywhere that the construction will impact, mess up, do grading or that sort of thing. And we'll be replacing that with grass in most cases. And then in between that green and the roadway, that's sort of a darker shade of gray. That's our new shared use path. That's our 10-foot wide shared use path that runs right. It runs with a small buffer in between the roadway and the path. So there's about 2 feet. I think it's 2 feet between the roadway and the path in this area. I'll point out as well that that we're showing the right-of-way line, and this. Let me see if I can point it out. Laser pointer. This line right here, this black line, is actually the area that the city owns. That's city-owned property for the roadway. So anything outside of that area will need to be acquired in either easements or property purchases, just for this area here. So we'll move on to the next area to the north, and we get into the Diamond Park area where it sort of opens up a little bit. We've got a little grassy area to the west side of Quince Orchard Boulevard. There's a couple of features in there. One of them is skate park, and there's a couple of landscaped areas that are actually older style stormwater management that I'll speak about a little bit later as well. We're again installing the shared use path and generally the location of the sidewalk. But you can see there's also light poles that will need to be relocated, and a few other utilities along this line that'll be impacted by the shared use path. And now here we're seeing our.
Seth, give me 1 minute if you could go back to the previous slide.
Yeah.
Just want to add one additional note for this one. The skate park will not be directly impacted. It will remain after the design is completed and the construction is completed. We will tie the shared use path into it. However, the existing skate area will remain as it currently is, with exception to the shared use path that's directly in front of it. So that's just one thing I wanted to mention to everybody. Thanks.
Yeah. Excuse me. And as we get into our design plan, you can see the plan view of where that skate park is. Will be tying in, like Mark said, the path into the entrance there. Again, doing the same sort of thing with the path along the edge of the road. We've got a little buffer in between the road and the path. We've got resurfacing throughout this area on Quince Orchard Boulevard. And then the other feature here is the big purple shaded areas. Those are our potential areas for stormwater management. I will speak a little bit more about our decision with these a little bit later, but you can see underneath those shaded areas are, excuse me, much better, are the old style stormwater management facilities that will be taken out and replacing. And then the path, as it moves north, it crosses Diamond Drive. And this is pretty much the similar location that was there already. It ties into the existing sidewalk systems on Diamond Drive. And that's it on that one. So we'll move a little bit farther north. Now we're getting into the north of Diamond Drive. We're getting into the park area that is recreation. We've got the sort of open, flat playing field and tennis courts. I think there's pickleball in there too. And also you can see that the roadway and the path kind of gains elevation as we move north towards the school, towards the elementary school. So here, as we're moving north of Diamond Drive, we're actually narrowing Quince Orchard Boulevard just slightly. And that allows us to add in the 10-foot shared use path and the 2-foot buffer. And then the back edge of that 10-foot path aligns fairly closely with where the sidewalk is right now. And the key with that is that, as I was saying, that the elevation kind of gains through here. And in order to make sure that we're not doing grading steep slopes down into the tennis courts, where we need to make up that area in the roadway. Now, that doesn't mean that the roadway is less useful or has less traffic capacity. We are able to just narrow the lanes and keep the same parking lanes and the same travel lanes throughout. The other thing I want to point out in this slide here is that there are a couple of trees that we're proposing to remove. You can see the yellow X's on the sort of east side. East is down in this picture, the east side of Quince Orchard Boulevard. These are trees that we'll speak about later, but just keep an eye out for those yellow X's as we click through these slides. The next area is north of Solitaire Court, and now we're getting closer to the elementary school. This is a pretty similar section as it was before. The slope is a little bit shallower outside of the pathway, but you can see you can see some of the pavement damage in the roadway as you view this slide. There's some cracking and rutting a little bit on the parking lane, and then it kind of slides across the roadway in the travel lane as well. So you can see our design here, and I am, of course, take a little break.
So while Seth has a minute, what we did have some discussions with our park staff, and they heavily utilize the park area for many different recreational items, and they do see parking along the corridor, and we anticipate trying to maintain as much existing parking as possible. So we do see we will see parking on both sides of the road as it's currently out there right now. One of the things, by allowing us to narrow the road a little bit, gives us the ability to make the corridor a little bit safer, and with the potential to reduce speeds in the corridor. So that's one of the things I did want to provide as one of the benefits for this. But I'll turn it back over to Seth.
Thank you for pinch hitting. Yeah, this is a pretty similar design as we move north and closer to the school. As Mark was saying, we were really prioritizing keeping parking on the streets, and then also minimizing, as we were talking to their parks, minimizing the impact on the heavily used recreation areas. So this is another, the purple shaded area here is another potential location for stormwater management that we're seeing. And I'll say, as far as the location of stormwater management facilities, it might seem like you want to put it, way down by the river or behind buildings or something like that, out of the way. But we really need to put it right next to the source of water. And that source is the impervious area of the roadway. So we're taking runoff from the impervious area and dumping it straight into these facilities. So it really, the location of these facilities is really very important, and it's kind of locked in based off of the topology. So as we're moving farther north, we come to right in front of the Brown Station Elementary. Many of these sidewalks were recently redone, I believe, but as part of their reconstruction. But you can see in the screen here, there is a mid-block pedestrian crossing. So there's a crosswalk right up at that driveway entrance. We call it a mid-block because it's not at an intersection, and there's no stop control for cars coming through. So, of course, we want to have as safe a crossing as possible. Having cars stop at a crosswalk by default is always the best choice. But we understand that right across from an elementary school, you're going to have people crossing that way no matter what. So you want to make it as safe as possible.
I'm going to add to that just a little bit. When we're looking at that particular crossing in front of the school, we are going to look at additional safety measures to try to enhance the safety of that particular crossing. I've asked our consultants to see if we can look at potential localized bulb out for that. some additional markings, and if there is any opportunity for signage, additional signage. So we are trying to incorporate additional safety measures where possible while we're doing the reconstructive and streetscape portions of the project. Thanks, so.
Yeah, and we have implemented that bulb out that Mark was talking about on that crosswalk in this preliminary plan. You can see, let me see if I can, see this area right here where we're pushing that curb out into the parking lane, which shortens the crossing distance. So it makes it a much safer crossing just from that standpoint. But the other thing is that on that side of the road, if you're waiting in the sidewalk to cross the street, there might be a parked car that blocks your view to vehicles coming down the roadway. So having this bulb out is really a great enhancement for that crosswalk, because you'll be standing right next to the travel lane. You can see cars coming and cars can see you when you want to cross. We know also that during school session that there is a crossing guard at this location. So that makes it, much safer during the school sessions.
Seth, it'll also significantly shorten the distance that someone has to walk across the pavement as well.
Yeah, definitely. So moving north, again, north is to the right here in this plan. Moving north beyond the school property, we'll be running the path now adjacent to some residential areas. There is a sort of narrow grass strip between the roadway and their parking areas. So again, we'll be narrowing Quince Orchard Boulevard in order to make everything fit. And the goal here is to fit everything within the right of way as much as possible. We want to minimize the need for any property acquisitions or easements that the city needs to handle. A little here is Rabbit Road. This is our view from Quince Orchard Boulevard, the middle of Quince Orchard Boulevard, looking up Rabbit Road. We'll be installing the 10-foot shared use path along the left side of this road, and that'll extend right up to the youth center. Directly behind that car that is parked on Rabbit Road, that's sort of facing us, there is a little bit of a stormwater management bump out. And what we'll be doing is extending that curb line towards the intersection, making it a more standard, typical section, removing that stormwater system, and that allows us to install our 10-foot shared use path along with the narrow buffer from the street. So we'll be doing a lot of curb and roadway reconstruction, sort of reconfiguring the roadway to be more uniform width. And the ends at the Robertson Youth Center. I know there is sidewalk that continues on, but really this is a destination that we're hoping to get people to. And then if you look farther up north on Quince Orchard Boulevard, now north is up, which is confusing, I guess. North is up in this plan view. You can see that there's a driveway to the residential area just to the top of your screen there. The driveway is really close to the intersection. And we know that this sort of poses some conflicts with entering and exiting vehicles from the driveway and the intersection. If you ever have sort of people going in all different directions in a roadway, you add in a potential for conflict or crashes. So to reduce that risk, we're proposing to shift that driveway entrance only 150 feet to the north along Quince Orchard Boulevard. This is something that we'll need to discuss with the property owner. Changing their access to their property is a big deal, and we really hope that they are buying into this change. But that's something that we will be working out in sort of the later stages of this project. So you can see here, looking at the next section north, this is sort of what we're dealing with. This is actually a bus stop right here with a car parked right at it, which is not all that great. But it's a pretty narrow grassy area. The residential parking is on the left side. There's a line of trees, and then your curb and your roadway. You can see a little bit more of the damage in Quince Boulevard. And this is our design plan. Again, you can see the relocated driveway on the bottom end of that. And then we'll be just continuing that same path to the north along the outside of Quince Boulevard, across another couple driveways, and then getting closer to First Field north side. Here we are approaching First Field Road, and the existing sidewalk sort of travels along this slip lane that goes from First Field and onto Quince Boulevard. And then there's a crosswalk way down at the end of that slip lane that gets you out onto First Field north or south, whichever way you want to go. And we're proposing here, instead of doing that long sort of way around, we're proposing another crosswalk on the slip lane at the end of it, and then crossing into that center triangle area and making the crosswalk across First Field Boulevard. Actually, that's a new crosswalk, but we're terminating the shared use path at that point central to that intersection to allow people to do sort of the loop, First Field Road, Quince Boulevard, north and south. The other thing you'll see, yep, go ahead.
Seth, for this particular segment, we may end up looking at terminating one of the crosswalks and focusing the crosswalks to one of those, but that will be at a future date that we would look at some additional detail to that. But at this current time, we're trying to get that shared use path connection across First Field, and that's why the crosswalk is actually placed, the proposed crosswalk is placed where it is. Thanks, Seth.
Yeah, and I'll point out the First Field, I spent a little bit of time talking about how it's not great to put a crosswalk on a mid-block area, but this isn't mid-block. This has an intersection in it, but there's no stop control on First Field Road, so people can drive straight through that without stopping. But we have done a study, an engineering study on this location to put in this crosswalk. And we feel that with the great number of people that we will expect to use this crossing anyway, and then also with the median refuge island, it's a fairly short 2-lane crossing in one direction, and then you can turn your head and look the other way to make another short 2-lane crossing. So safety is still important here, but we think this is the best solution. So that's the end of the project. That's north to south, the entire scope of work that we have, as we say. And now I want to talk a little bit more about some of the particulars, some of the impact from the project.
Seth, give me 1 second. I think we had a few people maybe arrive a little bit late, but wanted to recircle back. That says, if anybody has questions, we'll circle back at the end to answer those questions. We hope that any of the questions that you may have, we hope that we can answer those with the presentation. And if you have questions that aren't answered, we hope to be able to answer those towards the end of the presentation. So just wanted to let everybody know they will have an opportunity. We do want to hear from you. But if you would just hold on to those for just a little longer, and we'll make sure that we get to those questions shortly. Thanks.
Okay, so impacts. I mentioned earlier that we're proposing to remove some mature trees, and I pointed out those locations along the inside of Quince Orchard Boulevard. There are 19 trees along the inside of Quince Orchard Boulevard that have really maxed out the space that's given to them, and they've started to damage the sidewalk to a sort of a place where it's impassable for some users, and then also damage the roadway and the curb. The pavement has been damaged quite a bit from some of the roots, and the curb line has been sort of overtopped by the base of the tree. These trees are all mature trees. They're all, in the range of 20 to 50 inches in diameter. They're all either willow oaks or sweet gums. And at the start of the project, the city asked us to assess some options for what to do with the trees and what it would take to save them, or if removing them is a better option. So we took a multi-pronged sort of approach to assessing them. We looked at it from 3 different ways. We had an arborist look at the trees, do the condition assessment of them, and sort of give us an idea, at least preliminary, of what kind of maintenance they would need to remain in place. We also had a geotechnical pavement engineer assess the damage to the roadway. We did corings of the asphalt to see the structure of it, and we looked at all of the distresses in the roadway itself and what that would indicate. And then we did a civil engineering sort of a preliminary plan assessment to look at alternative sidewalk alignments or roadway configurations that could potentially save the trees. So as a summary of all of those things, we were able to look at it from all different areas with people who are experts in all of these areas. So the arborist assessment found that most of the trees were actually in fair to good condition. And if they were maintained properly, they could live another 20 years. But maintaining really means that they need more space to continue their life well. And that means adding opening up the impervious area around them. So moving some of the roadway away from them, or moving the sidewalk away from them as well. The pavement engineer found that there was just a significant damage to the pavement directly from tree roots. Not only from the base of the trees, but the roots, these trees do have quite a large root system, and they're seeking water wherever they can find it, and they're coming up into the pavement even on the other side of the roadway. So the repairs that they recommended just for the pavement to keep it in decent shape for longevity as well would mean a full reconstruction of the roadway pavement in that area. And that could mean an excavation and a refilling with gravels and asphalt as deep as 18 inches. And just that excavation really would remove many of these roots that are damaging that pavement. And then the civil engineering assessment found that moving the sidewalk we do need to maintain a sidewalk in this area, right? Moving the sidewalk away from the tree and away from the roadway would mean uh, uh, most definitely impacts to private property. You can see in this area, the curb line is from that parking area, the straight in parking on the left side of the photo. That's on private property. So if we were to move the sidewalk away from that tree back towards the parking area in a way that would make any difference to the tree and the sidewalk, that sidewalk would need to be in that parking area essentially. So that's a direct impact to private property and residential parking. We did also look at
sorry
yes.
to break it up, Seth. I do want to add one thing. The existing right-of-way is not too far off the back of the existing sidewalk. So there is not a tremendous amount of availability of right-of-way for this particular roadway. So being able to acquire, even trying to acquire, the intent of the project is not to add additional acquisitions. It's to more be able to maintain the roadway and look for like long-term solutions. So that's one of the things that we've tasked our consultants to look long-term, as well as what we anticipate any kind of impacts in and around the tree and any kind of potential risks to the city related to the trees as well. So we have multiple experts on the team. We've asked them to bring those expertise to look at these in multiple directions, and wanted to just make sure that we had the background of you know what room is available for these particular stretches of roadway for growth in particular. So I just wanted to just add that just as a clarity, because there is just really a reduced amount of space that's available. Thanks, Seth.
Yeah, so the other thing that we looked at was putting the sidewalk, shifting the sidewalk to be in the street itself. That would mean significant roadway reconstruction as well, excavating all of the old pavement, taking out the curb, losing parking in that area. And then, the grades, the elevations from where the sidewalk is to the roadway is quite a bit different. So it needs to be tied in quite far back as well. And we did find that while this was possible, losing the parking and the immense sort of reconstruction that would need to be undertaken would add close to $1 million to the construction cost. So from all of that, at the end of this assessment, DPW's really decided to remove the trees and replace them on a 3-to-1 sort of ratio. So every tree removed will be replacing with 3 of them, the correct size trees in this area that will grow and thrive for many years to come, and fill in the gap that we'll have from this loss of 19 trees. Mark, do you have anything else you want to add to this before we move on?
So no, I think you hit a lot of the big items. In particular, one of the biggest, when you go through the corridor, and I've driven through the corridor recently, The parking that's utilized along Quince Orchard Boulevard is well used, I would say, and the percentages, I would say, is in the upper quartile of the usage. So I don't ever see a tremendous amount of availability of spaces. I think there is a few here and there, but it does not lend itself to having large swaths of available parking along the corridor that could be removed at this point, unless there is, right now it's just very heavily used in the corridor. So we would just be still trying to see what opportunity we can still be able to manage or save parking in the corridor, which I think is, from what I've heard in the past with some of the community members, very is a priority for several of them. So I just wanted to add that as something that has been already expressed. There is concerns related to parking in the corridor. So thanks.
Great. So I'll move into the next issue that we wanted to discuss, and that's stormwater management. And I think I've spoken about it a little bit here and there as we were talking. So I'll kind of do this a little bit quickly. There are, as I said before, there's a requirement for us to do stormwater management. The idea with stormwater management is that we need to take water from impervious areas of the roadway and manage the stormwater that flows from this area, slow it down so we retain some of that water over a big storm, sort of like we had today, where we get a large volume of water. So we hold on to some of that water and slow the flow into the streams nearby. And then we also, in stormwater management, we're also treating that water. So we're removing some of the contaminants and silts and debris that flows out from the roadway. So again, they need to be in certain locations as close to the roadway as possible. And you can see from the plans that we had, they are fairly significant size. We don't have a lot of area to do stormwater management on this project, so we've really focused that look on the city-owned parks. And there are 3 of these older style stormwater management facilities in the parks and one on Rabbit Road. They're old and they don't meet the current standards for stormwater management. So we'll be replacing those with new modern bioretention facilities. They won't have this fence around them. They will be landscaped with trees and shrubs around the facilities. It's sort of a depression in the area, so people can still, they can use them. It's not really a recreation sort of area, but there's no reason why, we need to fence them to keep people out of them,
I do want to add to that. We've had discussions with our stormwater management division and environmental services. They are in support of replacement of these facilities to try to get them up to the new standards. The benefit of that particular idea that it would give us a higher treatment quality and volume for helping with the overall requirements that we're required to have for treatment of impervious areas. So by upgrading these, we would add additional volumes in the bioretentions and provide us additional water qualities volume for the overall project. So we're treating some of the existing, we're treating some of the new, but ultimately the volume that gets treated is drastically greater than what it was previously. So there is a major pros for actually doing these improvements.
So moving on to the next piece that we want to discuss, and that's the bus stops along the area. There are 6 bus stops on Quince Orchard Boulevard, and they sort of range from a sign on the sidewalk to a benches with to I think there's a shelter out here as well. And the plan is with these, you can see on this photo here of the existing bus stop in front of the elementary school, where it has the bench and the boarding area in between the sidewalk and the roadway. We're proposing to shift that so the sidewalk becomes your boarding area. Sort of shared use path becomes your boarding area, and then any sort of amenities would be moved to the back side of that sidewalk. And this sort of feature would be done on all of the different types of the bus stops that we have. If there's no amenities, then we're not planning to put any there. Amenities meaning trash can or benches. But if there are amenities there, we'll be replacing them with the same that's there now, or using the same bench and moving it to the new location if it's in good shape. But all of them get this same sort of treatment where the amenities get moved to the backside of the sidewalk and the boarding area is right against the curb. And the key with that is, instead of having the sidewalk go around the backside of the bus stop, we are able to keep this compact and stay within the right of way as much as possible, which is key for keeping costs down as well. Another couple of impacts I think we've talked about, utilities, some of the utilities that need to be relocated. This is sort of boring stuff, but it's a big part of a project like this. Private property we've touched on as we've talked about the design, and we're trying to minimize the impact to any private owned property. But we'll need to acquire right of way or easements if we need to for the path. Parking is another thing that we've talked about. We've tried to minimize as much as possible any reductions in parking. I believe the only reduction that we have is for that small bump out across from Brown Station Elementary. The other big one that we haven't discussed is temporary construction impacts. Construction on a project like this is going to be disruptive. And there's just really no way of getting around that. People use this facility all the time. And we want to make sure that it's accessible during construction as much as possible. There will be some issues that will need to shift pedestrians to the other side of Quince Orchard Boulevard for a period of time, or there could be temporary parking impacts while we're reconstructing the roadway. But really, this is a problem for us to solve in the really next phase of this design, to phase the construction to minimize the impact as much as possible. Maybe make do it in piecemeal sections, so the impacts are isolated, or we've discussed with the school about doing that area of the sidewalk during the summer time, so we're not impacting school days. So this is something that the timing of all of this, the construction, we understand and we'll be thinking about as we move in through the design project. But we really don't, it's way too early in our process to pinpoint exactly what those are going to be. And we'll talk a little bit very briefly about our construction cost. As we've discussed, this design, we're estimating to the construction cost will be about $2.3 million. We do have that broken down into sort of a couple of different buckets. A shared use path alone and all of the associated work that goes along with that is 1.5 million. Roadway work is significant. You know, repaving asphalt is quite expensive, and heavy earthwork as well going along with that. That's another 1.4 million, and then the stormwater management facilities alone that sort of support all of this. We'll be working to hold ourselves to this budget as we move forward. This is really the first good estimate that we've got for this scope of work. And then we'll jump to the schedule. We're here at the top, July public meeting. We've been working, the design team has been working for the past 6 months on this preliminary design. We've done a lot of investigations as well as the design work, surveys and utility relocating and environmental research as well. Our next phases move into final design, and during that time, we'll should be able to come back to the public in some way or form to communicate what we land on with the final design. So we expect the design work to be wrapped up by the end of this year, 2021. And then moving into pre-construction work, this could be property acquisition or utility relocations during the winter and into the spring. And then we're seeing a construction timeline of about a year starting next spring and then ending in the summer of 2023. I would say that this is a preliminary schedule. We try to do the same things that we are doing with budgets. We want to hold this schedule as much as possible, but there are times when things come up and this does change. So, and with that, I will turn it back to Mark to handle any questions or comments.
Perfect. Thank you, Seth. Greatly appreciate the presentation. If anybody does have any questions, please feel free to use your raise hand button. Again, my name is Mark Heil with the City of Gaithersburg. My email address is down there. You can reach me by there. At the end of this webinar, you will have the opportunity as part of the survey to add any additional information that you feel is necessary that you want to include back to the design team, and that will get forwarded to them as well. So I will turn it over to anybody that may have some questions. And it looks like we do have one. I'm going to turn it to Marianne. Give me 1 second. Marianne, you should have an opportunity to talk. All right. See if we have anybody else.
Mark, there's a couple of questions in that chat that we might start with, and
let's go to the chat then. Just to start off, will the recording be available? Yes, the recording will be available. I'm hoping to have it posted here in conjunction with our IT department. So I will have to coordinate with them to make that happen. So the answer is yes. In the chat box, Let's see, what else do we have? What is the total distance and mileage of the new path? That's from Marianne Sickman. I think we're looking at approximately 5,500 linear feet. If that helps, which is a good distance for along the corridor. We have a question from Andy Green. It says approximately how much less wider will the road be? We're looking at actually it's about 4 to 6 feet is roughly what we're taking away from the roadway. So we're narrowing the roadway a little bit in order to incorporate the shared use path. Hopefully that's answers your question. And then the examples of the bioretentions, we will get more detail for the bioretentions, but it's they're going to be similar to many that you've seen in the area. The bottom usually is mulched. We select particular planting material that is usually grows really well in those particular environments, allows us to add additional treatments. And ultimately, we want something that would accent the project and the community. So that's something that we would have our landscape designers include. We look forward to seeing more detail with that in the upcoming submissions. We have some additional questions related to heavy trucks off Rabbit Road and the CDL training path. Please consider that. Let me see if I can give Andy an opportunity to, if he's willing to. Andy, you have an
Can you hear me?
opportunity. We can hear you.
Great. Hey, thanks, guys. I love the idea of the path. Looks like you guys put a lot of work into it. I'm sure that it's going to be fantastic. The only thing that I'm worried about with, narrowing the roads is that, there's a CDL training course that's right up the street, and they utilize QO Boulevard all the time. They're the ones that are actually knocking down the oak trees closer to the First Field Road, because they have those big tractor trailers. I don't know if that's an official training area, but they certainly utilize it. The other thing is that we have the facility off of Rabbit Road, where I don't know exactly what it does, but I see those big heavy trucks come out of there all the time. And I'm just worried that, those big wide trucks might need a little bit more room, especially with all the heavy parking that's that you mentioned before is around that area. I just want you guys to be able to consider that. Thank you.
Andy, thank you for your feedback. I do want to give you some answers to that mystery facility. It is one of the city's facility. It is where Public Works Department staff is housed. We work from that particular site on Rabbit Road. We maintain the city from, honestly, most of that facility, or at least our roadways and our park staff and all kinds of good stuff comes out of there. We're very knowledgeable about the size vehicles that we have over there. We do have large trucks, as you indicate. Our employees are highly trained. It will be a little bit of a learning curve when we pinch in the road, but honestly, the roadway is going to be wide enough for the vehicles that actually slow down just all the vehicles in the corridor. So yes, there may be a little bit of a learning curve initially, but we expect that everybody will get used to that. And honestly, just overall traffic volumes and stuff will see speeds actually decrease in the corridor. So thank you again for your questions. But hopefully that also gives you some more information of what where Public Works is located.
Cool. So I know where to go, right?
You
I have
know
any
where to
questions.
go. Yep, you know where to go. It's not a mystery anymore.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Andy. We have Beth, I'm giving you opportunity to add anything to it. I saw your hand raised.
Yes, I just asked a question in the chat as well, but I'm happy to articulate it so the other listeners can hear it. And I apologize if this was addressed before I was able to join. My question relates to the road, the Quince Orchard Boulevard section between Diamond Drive and Quince Orchard. And if the road is going to be narrowed by 4 to 6 feet, does that mean that the road is going to be taken down to 1 lane? And a dual prong part of my question is that visitors at the skate spot have begun parking illegally in front of the skate spot. So there may potentially be a parking need there or someplace to try to allow for a car or two to get there. But most of the kids arrive on skates.
Okay.
But it's something to consider.
Thank you for that question, actually. To clarify that, we will actually be reducing not the entire corridor. We are looking from roughly Solitaire Court north as being a reduced section. Basically, anything past Solitaire will maintain the 2-lane travelway down there. We don't anticipate removing any of that width down there at this time. So we would still maintain the 2 lanes in each direction where they actually will come down past Solitaire, reducing it down to the section that's there now, like down to 1 lane with the parking on each side. So 2 travel lanes and parking on each side, if that helps.
Okay, so that's Solitaire to First Field.
So Solitaire, the first field on the northern portion. If you go south towards Quince Orchard Road, past Solitaire, that section will be maintained widthwise for the travel lanes. We would be adding a 2-foot utility strip and then a 10-foot shared use path behind the curb. And in that particular area, our design engineers would be looking at some of the utilities over there that may have some conflicts, but that the travel lanes won't be impacted over there.
Will the skate spot be impacted by this usage? Because that's a pretty wide swath right there.
So it currently, I believe there is not parking allowed in front of like the skate park area. It's 2 travel lanes down there. So that would be maintained similarly to what's there now. And as far as the skate park's concerned, we don't anticipate actually impacting the skate park with the exception of having the shared use path run in front of it.
Well, we're very happy to hear that because it feels dangerous to walk on that road when a bus is coming down the road and you're right at the curb when you're inside. So we're very excited about this.
Perfect. I'm glad we have very positive feedback on this. Thank you so much.
Mark, we want to go back up and get, Marianne had another question of what we expect will happen to the stream behind the skate park due to the water management. And her question is, will there be more water in the stream or less water in the stream?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and turn that over to Seth Darlington since you've had that. I can bring Beth on to repeat that comment. I mean, Marianne's comment, I believe. Seth, could you discuss that a little bit more detail?
Sure, yeah. The whole point of stormwater management is to reduce the amount of water that enters into streams like that on heavy storms. So it will be a net decrease of water that goes into that streamway. Yeah, I was going to say the other thing is that it holds the stormwater management holds on to a lot of the volume during a big event like that, and it does release it slower into the stream. So it spreads out the release of water into a stream as well. So that reduces the flooding during a heavy event.
Perfect, thanks, Seth. We have a question from Kamal.
Kamal, your question is in regards to the solitaire court stream restoration project. Unfortunately, this meeting is not about that project. This meeting is about the Quince Orchard Boulevard reconstruction and shared use path project. I do believe that we will be having another public meeting about solitaire court later this month. And you can visit the city's website or give us a call at Public Works and we can fill you in on exactly what the date is for that. But I believe it's targeted for July the 16th. And that's where you can find out more information about the extent of that project.
Thank you for your question for that. Have I caught up?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
I think.
Mark, did you catch there was a second part to Mary Ann's question about the mileage of the new path, and she was asking about the lighting.
I didn't catch the lighting question. Can you tell me what that question is?
Yeah, she says, is there any extra lighting planned? And I know we are doing lighting design, and Seth could probably, flesh out exactly what we're doing for the lighting.
So we do, while we're doing lighting design, we measure the light levels that are out there and make sure that they meet the standard. Not only are we relocating any lights that are impacted directly from the path and the roadway reconstruction, if we need to, we'll add new lights to the system. I believe they all meet the standard for roadway lighting, so I don't think we need to add any new lighting to the system. But we're making significant changes to the lighting out there right now, so many of the lights will be relocated.
We have another question from Mary Ann. What is the intended purpose of this path? The idea of the shared use path is to allow an additional connection from First Field, basically to get additional bicyclists, walking users, kind of a span of users to utilize this project. While we're doing the reconstruction of the roadway, Public Works typically tries to see if there's an opportunity to add additional capacity for additional, this particular project was, a transportation committee based project that aligned with the reconstruction efforts. And while we're doing the reconstruction efforts of the roadway, being able to increase the capacity by utilizing the shared use path is a priority for the city to add additional connections with the community. Currently, there is the NIST path that was recently opened this past year. So this would actually feed into that, or vice versa. Additionally, this would go up to First Field with the connection, utilizing the sidewalk along First Field to connect towards the Clopper Road shared use path over there. So by doing this, we're adding additional capacity, allowing multiple users, and increasing the transportation connectivity in the city. And then I guess many people walk their dogs right now on that sidewalk. Do they share that path now with bikes? Um, Currently, I think we have you know, a 5-foot sidewalk over there. I think all users right now feel a little bit pinched over there when they are probably seeing bicycle traffic and walking and similar. So with the wider shared use path, this enables multiple users and allows additional clearances between the different types of users. So we feel like this will add to the community and give us additional capacity in the corridor. So thank you.
Mark, if I could add to that as well, the idea of a shared use path is to provide access for all the users. Bicyclists are not allowed to ride on the sidewalk. I know they do, but they're not.
Mark, within the city, we are allowed to have users right on the sidewalk. The city has allowed a passage of a law to allow within the city limits bicyclists to utilize sidewalks and within the city. So that's within the recent allow for that particular usage, but having a 10-foot shared use path allows bicyclists in each direction to pass each other. It allows walkers to pass each other with no issues. It allows multiple spans of different types of users on the shared use path to utilize the new facility. So
Yes, and provide enough room for everyone to be there.
And I think what I hear from a lot of the community, the community does utilize the paths at night. I think this would just enhance that even more. And I think you'll see even more types of users utilizing the wider shared use path in the corridor.
Andy would like to know where he can learn more about all the paths. And I would tell Andy that he should email Mark because Mark has a pretty good map he can share with you.
So I can share more of some of our projects, what's going on. I'd be more than happy to do that. I can share, where we have paths in the city and where some are off-road, some are on-road, some are just hybrid. It all depends on what the user is looking for. So the city has a variety of different opportunities to use different transportation modes. And we hope that all the users are able to find that information. If not, we'll be more than happy to help you get that information. So,
Mark, Montgomery County also has a has a bike map. As well.
And then we'll have a little bit more time here. I think we have about 5 or 10 minutes more, and I think we'll be wrapping up by about 8:30. So if we'll stick around a little bit longer, and I think we have Beth ask a few more questions. Would you please show the map again? Are the sidewalk enhancements intended only on Quince Orchard Boulevard, or will First Field also be included? So there currently is, I don't know if you can show an overall, Seth, for me, but the anticipated improvements are focused on Quince Orchard Boulevard and Rabbit Road, with some improvements such as the crosswalks across First Field Road. And First Field sidewalks are similarly close to the roadway and lack a grass buffer for pedestrian and pet bicyclist safety. So yeah, currently we don't have scheduled work on First Field Road besides what's related to this particular project. So there is some challenges in particular in First Field, but that would hopefully be something maybe down the road, but currently is not on the horizon at this point. But we do feel like having that additional buffer along Quince Orchard Boulevard with at least a 2-foot buffer that is going to provide additional safety along the corridor. So hopefully it provides the additional sense of safety of walking and all that through that corridor. So I guess
I know the city would love to do paths on every roadway they possibly can. Limited funds, am I right?
Yes, we have limited funds of what we can achieve. Anybody else have any questions? I don't think we have any others that's raised their hand. Novavax. Is there, from Marianne, is there a way for us to know exactly what trees are being removed in the future? Pink plastic ribbons tied on them. Is it a lot of trees? As I walk, I'd like to know which trees are going before they are cut down. What's your, I think right now we're still at the 30% design stage. We're looking at the details of exactly which trees will be impacted. We are looking to get some additional feedback in July. So if there's additional questions that may come up related to that, we're more than happy to share those as they come up. We do have the slides that will be available that shows currently what the 30% design is and the impacts related to the trees at this point. Our design team will be looking to having another public session of some sort in the months coming up, which we will add to the website. And we look forward to having maybe a field walk or do something along those lines to show what impacts would be to those at that time. So absolutely. I guess we are nearing our time. If there's not any additional questions, we can be looking to wrap up. Does anybody have any additional last remaining questions? I guess, Seth, we can maybe show Marianne a couple of the sections that show some of the trees with the yellow X's on them, but that was on the eastern side of the corridor. And we do anticipate some impacts to be flushed out in the near future with the 60% design. So we're getting more details as we progress in the design stage. And we look forward to sharing that with everybody at that time. So if there isn't any additional questions, thank you for attending, and we appreciate everybody's questions and asking really good questions. I'm glad we could actually answer the question about the Public Works building and provide you more details about this particular project, and we look forward to adding more detail as we go forward. So again, my contact information, you can always reach me by email, mark.kyle@gaithersburgmd.gov, and we look forward to providing more information as the project progresses. Please continue to check the city's webpage for this project. We keep keeping information on there as we get more information with the design. And again, thank you again for attending tonight's webinar, and have a good evening. Appreciate it. Thank you, design team. Appreciate the support tonight.
Yeah, thanks for pulling us together, Seth.
All right, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and end it.